Well, here's a fresh issue that I'm having. If you look at this light fixture here, we have some water coming in here. So we're gonna have to address that. Something on the roof is obviously leaking. Haven't had a leak before, but I do live in the desert, so I don't run into rain that often. And we have been having steady rain for the last couple of days. So we're gonna go up on the roof and see what's going on, but this is pretty disturbing. Welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're going to do a rooftop inspection on my new RV. And unfortunately, these newer RVs, a lot of them do not have a ladder that goes up to the roof, and they expect you to use one of those telescoping ladders, which is almost impossible to use. So fortunately, I have one of these type of ladders at home, so I have the luxury of easily inspecting my roof. So let's get up onto the roof. We're gonna inspect this roof like amateurs. I'm an amateur, I'm not a professional RV technician, but I have inspected hundreds of commercial building roofs, so I think I can do a pretty good review of this roof. At about the 6-month mark, I did have a roof leak over in this area. I think many people fear that catastrophic leak, and those catastrophic leaks are actually really easy. You can pinpoint to where it comes from, but it's those little drips that slowly decay the wood over time. Those are the type of leaks that I'm afraid of because they're really hard to catch. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a deconstruct video at the very end. So you will have to stick to the very end, and I'll deconstruct one of these components and let's see what the issues are and what, if I was a manufacturer, what I would do differently. Okay, I ended up taking this light fixture off, and we'll peek above here, but I see a pretty obvious spot where that water is coming from. It's where those wires are coming in through the roof. I don't know what wires those are, but it should be pretty simple to find out what it is, but pretty disappointing that water is coming through here. The other thing I notice is this whole inside cavity, there's barely any insulation in here. The whole cavity is pretty much empty, so I think they could have done a better job of insulating it, but let's go up on the roof and fix this. Alright, the rain has finally stopped. I had to put this tape on there temporarily to cover it up so water wouldn't keep leaking out. Let's see what we have, what we're in for. Looking at this wise, all this die-core looks like it's in pretty good condition. There's a little part missing right where this screw head is here, where that silver is shining through. And then the other part is, I don't know if you can see in between here. Can't get my fingers down there, but way in between there's a little gap, no die core there, so water may be going through there or wicking through these connectors here. These connectors are a little bit loose, so not sure. I'm gonna have to investigate this a little bit more, but that was quite a bit of water dripping from the inside. So let me get down to the bottom of this. Alright, I've taken everything apart. I've taken these fittings apart, and they do have the proper rubber grommets on here, but I'm thinking it may still be difficult for the water to intrude back into there. So you can see with things removed, this is the little spot where the die core is missing. I'm leaving to the conclusion that there's missing die core here and at the screw head here. That's my conclusion. All I'm going to do is clean this up and put this die core on here. This is the self-leveling die core. I know a lot of Winnebago owners follow my channel, and remember, you don't use die core on Winnebago products. You use a self-leveling silicone, not die core. They're not compatible with each other. Right, if you haven't done die core before, this is the self-leveling kind. Self-leveling, just like it sounds, it's very liquidy, and it basically self-levels. And don't mind the color. This is like an off-white color. It's the fastest I could get at that time. And it'll end up, I wouldn't play around with it too much. You just put it on here, glob it on here, and it will level by itself. We'll do that here as well. Bring it up a little higher. And lap sealant, meaning you need to overlap it. So that's really it. Before we jump onto the roof and do a thorough inspection, this inspection can be utilized for pretty much any type of roof. I do have the fiberglass roof, but just like typical RVs, I have a rear cap. You can see the seam over there, as well as the front cap, and you can see the seam up there. So the flat surface here, they usually roll over the side, so this is a point that you would have to inspect as well. But we're going to today focus on just purely the rooftop and the front and the rear caps. So let's jump onto the roof and do an inspection. I'm going to start out in the back area of the roof, and if you see here, this is where my back cap meets the roof. And typically when they overlay these, it's sealed underneath, but you can see they have this layer of Dicor here. My particular roof has the Dicor self-leveling sealant, and you will also see this section here. So this is my patch job here. This section here I ended up putting in here because there was no sealant at all, and you will see another portion right in that corner right there. So you do want to inspect this rear cap seam and double check, you can actually step on it and see if there's any pressure difference. The other thing too is, here's my skylight. So very typical leak points in the skylight. They have these screws, and a lot of times what happens is these RV manufacturers, they way over tighten these screws and end up stripping them. So that's an area to watch out for. So mine look so far so good in my skylight. This is my Starlink I put in here. This can't leak because I actually don't have any screws at all. But here, my satellite, you can see where this plate is. You'd obviously need to inspect in these areas where the screws are. Anywhere you have the plumbing vents, like here, same as the exhaust fans, like the Max Air fans, you want to check around all of these. And here's where I found my original problem. So this is for my solar panels here, and the solar panels come back to this connector here, and I had water leaking underneath. And like I mentioned, I didn't have a catastrophic leak, but I did get lucky. The leak was dripping through a light. So if it was in a different area, if it was just offset a little bit, I would have never caught that leak. These particular solar panels here, even though they have the caulking here, all my solar panels, the factory, they didn't use screws. They actually, it's down with VHB tape and this Dicor, so I don't have to check anything on the solar panels. And then this one here, this is the wine guard. I actually took the original off and reinstalled it when I installed my Starlink. So I'm pretty confident of my installation here. And this is where I found out when I originally removed this, all my screws were stripped. So while I'm doing this inspection, if you guys have any other input, if you would do anything differently, throw it down in the comments, because I'm just doing it as an amateur RV owner. I've had several RVs, but I don't have extensive experience on inspecting the roofs. What I do know about roofs are usually the flat areas. That's never the issue. It's always where penetrations are made in the roof itself. Like I mentioned at the end of the video, I'm going to do a deconstruct of this area, and we'll probably be able to pinpoint what the actual issues were and what the manufacturer could do differently. Possibly not, but we'll see once we do the deconstruct. The other items are the two ACs. I have two air conditioning units, and you do want to check for them being loose. So how these air conditioning units are installed is they're just clamped on the roof, from the bottom to the top. They're just clamped together, and they're just a thin, like a rubber foam gasket. It's a square-shaped rubber foam gasket that goes around the roof. On my ACs, I've tightened all my bolts, so from the bolts down below, you do have to check them periodically if you have an older RV. So that's something you might want to put on your radar. I've had one of my old RVs actually leak through the roof, and I have had to replace those gaskets. And jumping up to the front, nothing worth really mentioning. We have a duplicate of the back area with the vent and the solar ports. I did see where they have these solar connectors. Unfortunately, looks like they actually use screws here, which I wish they did not use. But every screw area, of course, you're going to have potential leak points in the future. So same thing as this air conditioner here is you'd have to check for looseness on this. And then the front cap. So if you can see here on my front cap, I do have the Dicor here, but what you notice here is this center section here,
there's no die core here at all. And I'm not a huge fan of the die core because it's really not really a water sealant. It's just a good way to have the water, I don't know, get displaced away from there. And here, between the front cap and the roof, there should be sealant underneath here already. So it should really not be a leak point. But I think I should follow the rest and probably put die core down here and up here as well. And then finally, I did not bring up, these are my clearance lights. And, you know, obviously you have to check these two items here. And this is my fiberglass front cap. And I don't know if you know, but you're not supposed to stand on those. Usually there's no structural reinforcement in those. But those clearance lights, let's go to the back clearance light. Now these are custom clearance lights, so they're going to be a little bit different. So let me jump up to the clearance lights. So I'm at my back cap here, and you can see I have clearance lights here, but this is not like the traditional RV clearance lights. These are custom ones that Dynamax makes with a rubber gasket. So this is not really a good example, but what they usually use, if you see this RV here, you see those clearance lights there, that's like a traditional clearance light. And if you go around to the side of the RV, many clearance lights are going to be like this up on the roof. So we're going to take this apart and I'll show you what you need to check for. So right here, what I did was I removed the cover of these clearance lights with a screwdriver here. And what you will notice is there's two screws here. And behind here, obviously electrical wires have to get back here. I'm not going to take this apart, but if your clearance lights were up high, basically at your front and rear cap, a lot of times what the RV manufacturers forget to do is they forget to put some kind of sealant where the screw holes are and where the wires come out of the body. So when the rain comes through here, or sometimes what happens is over time these lights crack and water gets inside here and it will leak inside the RV. So that's a common area you would have to check for. But like I said, I'm pretty lucky with the type of clearance lights I have. And hopefully these don't become an issue, but I will have to inspect them in the future on these gaskets. And the areas that I'm going to skip is when the fiberglass roof, it can be fiberglass or the TPO, when the roof gets rolled over, this rail right here, this is where basically the side wall and the roof come together. You do have to check for proper sealants along this area, especially on a Winnebago. But I'm going to skip anything that has to do with the side. It's really just the top. But most importantly, I highly suggest doing some kind of roof inspection, because I know many people claim they never have roof leaks, but it's not the leaks you have to worry about. It's those little drips that will slowly decay the wood over time. So I'm going to jump forward to doing a deconstruct on that, and you should have seen a clip already on my leak. So let's do a deconstruct to see if there's anything worthwhile to check out on the original installation. Okay, we're going to do a deconstruct video here. So I might have to fast forward some of this section here, but let me take these Solar's wires off here. Okay, next item we're going to have to do is scrape all this die core off. What I'm going to do is do a little trick here. I'm going to use this torch and heat up this blade just a little bit. Just heating it up just a little bit. That way, basically we'll go through this die core much faster. Should have done that from the get-go. If you've seen my VHB videos, that's how I usually take the VHB tape off. Okay, I got the correct Torx bit, and check this out. So look how loose that screw is. Same as this one right here. Is like usual, the RV manufacturers, they use those power drills, and I would never use a power drill on an application like this. So all these screws are just basically doing nothing. Yep, look at that. Just barely hanging in there. You can pretty much just push it in and out. So that's one issue I see. I was expecting that based on what I ran into in this Winegard installation and working on other RVs. These screws are usually just stripped. And I gotta remove these two here. So this project may end up coming to a dead end because I don't think I have one size up screws from these in my hardware kit. Weird size Torx bits here. Okay, and let me get underneath here. Alright, well, I see the problem right away. I don't know if you recognize this, but deconstructing of this, one is they have this big hole here and they never filled that hole. The other thing as well is underneath this mating surface here, usually we put some kind of a butyl tape on here. So they have no butyl tape. I don't know if you're familiar with butyl tape, but anytime you're mating two surfaces together and you want a waterproof membrane, you use this butyl tape in between. I know they use the butyl tape on this this Winegard when I took that apart. So looking at this wise, really easy for the water to get in. The other thing I would do differently besides using butyl tape is once you have the holes, I'd actually fill the inside with silicone before I stuck these screws in there. That way you get a watertight assembly with just the screws and you don't even really need the die core above except to channel the water away. And that's how my other RV in the back is like. I actually don't have any of this die core on top, but really easy self-explanatory on why it's leaking. So based on this, if you have any cracks or anything inside this die core, you're going to get water inside, same as the screws. Yeah, so whoever ran these this solar wire, I don't know if they subcontract it out or they do it themselves, but a very poor install. Just like the inside, if you saw, all that insulation was missing. And my final thought is this roof construction. I know Winnebago gets a lot of flack on their roof construction, but I'm really not impressed with this roof either. Looks like they're only using 3/8 inch plywood. They do have the thin little metal studs in between, but when I walk on this roof flexes and it feels like you're gonna sink right through. The Winnebago one actually felt much stronger to me. So I think they need a hybrid. I think if Winnebago actually put structural members inside their laminated roof, I think that'll be much stronger than this type of roof, and you won't run into all these insulation voids. Okay, I wasn't going to show this portion, but found some major problems. I can't actually use the butyl tape because if you look down below, there's no flat surface except this edge. So I see what the problem with the manufacturer install was. Number one, they had these screws, and like I showed before, they use that power drill, so all these screws are just stripped completely. Terrible installation job. The other part is that they just screwed this down and put that die core over the top. But I went online and found this this solar port here, the installation instructions. And if you see here, these ridges here, that's actually called a cup. It actually holds the caulking in here. So you're supposed to fill this with caulking here first, and then lay it down and install it, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill all this up with caulking, fill the screw holes with caulking, fill this hole here. I'll have to stuff some more foam in here, but I'm going to fill this with caulking too, so this will be watertight. This is probably not the best solar port to use, but if you follow the instructions, it'd be pretty watertight. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to use this product here. So in this application, you don't want to use the die core, and I didn't want to use silicone either. So I'm going to use this. Fill these cups here with this sealant. Fill the holes up. Fill this hole up. And I'm going to use a new screw. This was the factory screw, but it's stripped, so I went one size up, and I went with the stainless screws here. And like I mentioned, we'll fill these holes with the sealant. Put the new screws on, and when the sealant oozes out, that's why I have the tape here. I'll just well, you'll see what I do. So let's get with it. Alright, I spent the extra time now, and it'll make the cleanup much faster. Alright, and we'll end up using this here, and here I'm going to fill up these cups. It's going to take a lot of sealant here. Basically, we're filling up this whole cup here, these grooves here, along with the screws here. And it's going to all ooze out, so I'll put one right down the center here too. And finally, on this side here. And let me see, make sure I put plenty in here so it oozes out. Put some inside the screw holes. And lastly, we'll put some on top of these. When I push the wires in, this foam will go in with it. But let me give this a shot here. There we go. So that's it. So all that caulking is oozing out, and we will have to find the original screw holes here. And you can see, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but you can see that caulking oozing out of here. And we'll get this on here like this. You're gonna line up to find the holes here. And we're gonna manually tighten this. So we will manually tighten this. We don't want to strip out the screw like the manufacturer did. So I'm not using much pressure at all. I know this is boring and tedious, but very important to do this procedure properly. And the final screw. Okay, and I'm going to go around each one and tighten the four corners a little at a time. Right, and then lastly what we need to do is clean up the caulking here, and I'm just going to use my finger and wipe the excess off and make a nice smooth edge around here. So when I take the tape off, we should have a nice finish on the sides here. And this will help speed up that cleanup time. I think I got it good. Let me do it one more time. Right, we'll peel this tape off and see what we have to work with here. Oh no. Well, the neighbor's air conditioner came on, so sorry for the noise. Now you can see that nice smooth finish here. There we go. I might end up putting, I'll clean this up. I might still end up putting some die-core around here and around the edges. But the way I have this installed right now, you shouldn't even actually need any die-core. But now the die-core will be more acting as a water divergent. So it'll just shed the water away. But the actual waterproofing feature is the sealant that's here. That's how the manufacturer should have installed it in the first place. So now if I do have a die-core failure, I have a second method of the water not getting inside here. So hopefully that you find that useful. If Dynamax is watching, you should definitely change up how you install this roof port, because they are definitely not installing it in the proper manner. There's always an explanation on why something happens, and I think on this channel that's what I'm going to try to get down to, is basically explain to you how I think it is. Again, this is all opinion. I'm not a roof expert, but this is what I found out, and hopefully this makes it useful for you. Well, that's really it on my roof inspections. I think the moral of the story is it's very important to do a roof inspection. You should do it at least every 6 months. I think these RV manufacturers are known for voiding your warranty if you don't get it checked out at an authorized RV center. You know, anything they can do to get away from that roof warranty, which I pretty much proclaim that the roof warranties are almost worthless. But that's it. Nothing really special about the roof inspections. I would definitely periodically check your roof, because these sealants don't last very long and they're pretty fragile, especially this die-core. You can pull up pretty easy. So I would definitely do a routine inspection on these, and hopefully this helps you out, or at least give you the motivation to do your own roof inspection.